Welcome to the NJ Criminal Podcast and part 4 in this series.
Did the description that was provided and which resulted in a sketch of the individual that the family, the couple, believed they saw Mark with, and then I believe you described was it a second sketch done of an individual that those teens believed that they saw him with. Did either of those sketches match or were similar to Butkabbage or the Ocean City individual that you spoke of?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of points there. I'll just quickly bullet point it for you. The Ocean City person description never came up in any sketches or descriptions. Another reason why the case kind of gets away from him. Thomas Butkabbage had a small possession of marijuana when we did the search warrant, February 1993. So an arrest photo is taken. And if you look at the arrest photo, February of 1993, and the sketch in November of 1992, it's almost identical. Another reason that drove the task force more in the direction of Butkabbage as a prime suspect in this case, in addition to his fantasies that he's talking about.
The individuals you just described a couple minutes ago, a person in the airline industry, and I believe another individual, were they ever interviewed by law enforcement? Oh,
yeah. They were heavily scrutinized. They gave a formal statement. The Delaware County, it's called the District Attorney's Office, which is like our prosecutor's office. I'm explaining this to myself like you don't know this.
That's okay.
The District Attorney's Office has detectives like our prosecutors, and they took a formal statement from that person. That person has been interviewed then and through investigators multiple times, even follow-ups years later. And he says, the situation was what it was, and weird as it was, but he was not involved in any abduction and doesn't have knowledge of Butkabbage being involved in abduction. He didn't say Butkabbage didn't do it. He's just saying that he has no knowledge of Butkabbage being involved in an abduction. He wasn't that close to him. There was a potential love interest there, which may or may not have developed, but he was not close friends with him like his roommate was. His roommate, who also was interviewed and gave a formal statement, was a lover of Butkabbage.
I'm just looking at the sketch of the individual that Mark was seen speaking to and the arrest photo of Butkabbage. I mean, that sketch was obviously done well before you had in knowledge of Butkabbage, right? Because that
100%.
That 100%. And just to be clear, that was the police sketch of the man that the couple saw him speaking to. Is that right?
That's right. They were in a light colored or gray colored car, and there was a white female driver and a white male passenger who, when Mark passed him, was standing on the running board talking over the hood of the car to Mark, and eventually gets back in the car. And they see through their rearview mirror, and then that car behind them leaves before them, and I believe they have to go in front of them and make the U-turn, and then leave Delaware Avenue, which is how they get all the information that they have.
Yeah, but when was that sketch done? I mean, that sketch was done by the
November
state police.
November 9th, I believe, is the exact day of 1992.
Okay, and yet Butkabbage didn't come on the scene as a person of interest until the next year, correct?
100%. To my knowledge, the Philadelphia Police Department, the district attorney, those people were not even mentioned in the investigation, Himebaugh investigation. We had no leads going that way until Butkabbage came into it. So we never even talked to Philadelphia PD until this case came up. This information came up.
Nevertheless, Buck Cabbage was not charged. There wasn't enough at that point to charge him. And so now we are, it's what, mid 95, end of 90s, into the 2000s. What happens really in the next couple of decades?
Phase.
Right.
Well, let's start with the tailing off of the Buck Cabbage investigation. So that goes on from 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, a little bit into 2000. But really, the hands-on interviewing everyone kind of slowed down, I would say, by 96. We still were interested in him. He was still on the radar, but the heavy investigative phase kind of slowed down. And he kind of, I wouldn't say falls off the radar, but is not the main focus of our case now at that point. What Buck Cabbage does is separate from all of this, in his own twisted world, starts grooming a boy whose mother has a crack habit and is being fed drugs by Buck Cabbage. And through her own tape statement to PA State Police. And she gives up her son to Buck Cabbage for the weekend. He takes him to this house in Cochranville. And the rule is they have to remove all their clothes at the door and not put them back on until they leave at the end of the weekend. And basically, it's a child molestation orgy of adult on juvenile, juvenile on male on adult. And Buck Cabbage had a male and female younger adults that were occasionally came over. They all sexually interacted with each other. Polaroids were taken. I don't have any proof of this, but it seemed like Buck Cabbage was trying to sell or make movies, child porn movies, and sell them. However, he was going to do that. That was never proven, but he was taking a lot of Polaroids and trying to get movies of all these interactions. And what he does, what most child molesters do, is they use their victim to lead them to the next victim. There's a total of 3 where he brings them out to this house in Cochranville. Some were two of the 11 and 12 years old. 2 of them were at the house at the same time for the weekend. He groomed them to lower their fears, to where he would take them to Hershey Park, give them money, eventually alcohol, eventually marijuana, cocaine.
And just to be clear, you're describing this because he's ultimately convicted, correct?
Yes. And ultimately in 98, one of the victims goes to their parent and actually complained that he was no longer coming to pick him up because he found a new victim to molest. So the Pennsylvania State Police get involved and do an outstanding job. And Buck Cabbage is charged with 196 counts. I don't know what the total conviction number was, but he was sentenced to 18 to 36 years in Pennsylvania State Prison. He's eligible for parole 2017, and his max date is 2035.
If you're able to say it, when was the last time he was interviewed or attempted to be interviewed about the disappearance of Mark?
I can say it, and the information I just spewed out at you is, again, open source information through newspapers and media, and I didn't. They're not confidential files. Mm-hmm. This is a very heavily covered case in the Philadelphia area. Disgusted a large number of people. There was at one point where he was on bail awaiting trial, and they didn't think he should have bail for what he was doing. But that was in the news. But nonetheless, what the hell was your question?
Well, I guess my question was, if you're able to say, when was the last time he was interviewed or attempted to be interviewed about Mark's disappearance?
Yeah, so after that, and 98, and time goes on, there's no sign of Mark, no other suspects coming forward. We're coming up short with everything, and time is going on and on. And I retired at the end of 2010, and I know myself and the prosecutor's office, with the approval of Mark Himebaugh, that we would offer a deal to Bud Cabbage. If he would tell us where Mark is, he would plead guilty to a charge and get time served consecutive to what he's concurrent with what he's serving. So
was this prior to you retiring?
Yes. And I went to, it was at the time, Camp Hill Prison. Bob Hover was there, and the prosecutor's office. We walked in, and we at the time, New Jersey changed the law to where if you're interviewing for first and second degree, it has to be videotaped. And we have this monstrosity of a video camera and laptop. And he walks in, and he sees all that. And we tell him why we're there. And he says, look, I apologize, but, based on the way I was treated in 93, I don't trust law enforcement, and I'm not going to give you any statement. If you have any questions for me, please go through my attorney. And he gave me his attorney's card.
And that was that.
And his attorney said, if we ever wanted to speak to him, please reach out to him first.
Right.
And that was really, in 2015, I put together a PowerPoint of the case for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And along with the prosecutor's office, Chief Lusner, who asked me to do it, he comes along and we present this case, and they give us their best suggestions of going forward. And that's really, I slowly start to drift away from even advising in the case. And to my knowledge, the last time we tried to talk to Buck Cabbage.
Now, at that point in time, 2015, I mean, you had been retired for 5 years. It sounds to me like you did kind of remain involved and have obviously, in light of the book that you've written, you are still obviously deeply connected to, understandably, and desirous of finding out what happened. And I think I can understand that from all of what you've described. Is that why? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that why you have remained connected to the case and have written this book?
Meg, Mark is an 11-year-old boy, and he needs to be found. And I don't care if I'm a civilian. I care. I follow the law, and obviously I'm not going to tell the police what to do, what not to do. But I'm going to do everything I can do in my power to try and find that boy. I'm a father. I was a police officer in Middle Township where he was taken from. I have an obligation, I feel, to find this boy. A family member, distant family member, was like, he's gone. It's 30 years. Forget it. No, that's a life. Mm-hmm. We can't just say, I'm sorry, Mark, we can't find you. That is not acceptable to me. And what I felt was the PowerPoint was over 500 slides. It was an in-depth overview of the case. And I feel like I know I gained a good working knowledge of the case chronologically. I'm a student of this case more than investigator. Scott Webster, Fred Tiesenfitz, Bob Hover, Marie Hayes, Bill Kirkbride, they are the investigators in this case. Rob Blaker from the state police. I'm more of a student of this case, and my concern for a missing boy. That's my involvement.
And I do think it's important. That's one of the reasons I'm interviewing you, is that just by going over it again and again and again, you never know what different information might come of that, or viewpoint might come of that. One thing I forgot to ask you about, there was a reference in your book to a woman that had found what she believed was a blanket with blood on it outside of a bank. Do you think that was connected to the case, or was that just another kind of red herring?
Meg, I put that in the case because as a writer, to entertain the audience somewhat, to give you information as a reading the story. Like it's a first, aside from the sneaker, potential piece of evidence. So there's a blanket of blood.
Right.
I believe, as you mentioned, it could be a red herring by the location. It was found outside of the Cape May Police Department, in between. It was like a tree line between there and the bank. Nat West Bank. It was at the time.
Was it ever tested though? I mean, was it in fact blood?
It was tested, and it was determined to have human blood, but it was not Mark's blood. Based on the mitochondrial DNA that we have for Mark, we don't have his exact markers. No, they never, for some reason, obtained Mark's DNA, so we don't have that. What we have is dad's sample, mom's sample, and I believe they took the brother's sample as well. And based on the mitochondrial, the lab assistant was like 99.9% sure it wasn't Mark's, minus some genetic, uniqueness that was highly unlikely. But what is it? There was the talk of satanic worship through this case, and through Buck Cabbage potentially. His interest in it from witnesses we interviewed in '93. Mark's father, a girlfriend later, said that he potentially was involved in a satanic church worship down in the Cape May area. That's never been proven. I think he cleaned a church for extra side money, but I don't know if that was twisted to mean I don't know if he was involved in satanic church or not, but it was mentioned. So, that
he spent enough significant time in Cape May County to have had employment.
The father?
No, I thought you were referring to Buck Cabbage.
No,
okay.
He definitely frequented the area.
Got it.
He was a computer repairman, so employment, potentially he could have been in the area to fix someone's computer, but he did not have a job. He didn't hold a job in the area. One of his lovers did have a job at the captain's table, and then one of the peers on the boardwalk briefly.
So he certainly had connections to the Cape May County area.
He definitely did. He doesn't want. He tries to remove himself from the area as much as possible, but he definitely had connections here. In 2015, the male prostitute that came forward in February of '93, in 2015 went to Ted Greenberg and reaffirmed what he told investigators in '93. He said, "I'm telling you, what I saw on that tape was what I thought was Mark Himebaugh." He had no reason to come forward, and I don't know why he did it. But I tell you why he said he did it. It still bothered him, because we were talking about renewing the investigation around that time frame, and we went down to the National Center. So, did
he have anything to gain by coming back forward in 2015? Did he have any kind of current charge or something like that?
No. He volunteered that information, that he reaffirmed what he said was true. What he added was that there's a campground on Route 47 in Green Creek that he and Buck Cabbage stayed at, or at least Buck Cabbage, on a weekend, had been to that campground, which Buck Cabbage never gave up in his interviews.
The investigation is still open. and the Cape May County Prosecutor's Office and Middle Township Police are still investigating any leads, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
And so if anyone listening has any information to provide, who should they reach out to?
The first source would be the Cape May County Prosecutor's Office. Marshall Craddock is the lead, but you could talk to any investigator. You could go to the Middle Township Police Department, obviously. It's all one investigation, one effort, so it's all going to mainstream back to the prosecutor's office. But if you live in Mount Laurel, you could go to the Mount Laurel Police Department, give them your information, and they'll do a report and forward it to us. But initially, if you can, reach out to the Cape May County Prosecutor's Office.
Excellent. Thank you on behalf of everyone involved in the case, and for all of your decades-long work in trying to find out where Mark is. It's admirable, and I appreciate you taking the time today to give us really the very detailed description of that day back in 1991 and what happened after in efforts by law enforcement to find Mark.
Thank you for the compliments, and thank you for the time to tell a story. I just would, you have a lot of legal analysts or attorneys potentially as listeners, and I said to you before the show, I've always wondered if, other than a law enforcement mindset, put their analytical tools to task to try and help untangle, this mystery that I don't think is so as sophisticated as it appears to be. They think it's more local and lower class, if you will, of what actually happened. But we just can't find that missing clue, and maybe the analytical skills of an attorney may have a different point of view to that. I greatly would appreciate that.
And your book, I should also indicate, your book includes photos, sketches, things of that nature. Is it possible to put links to those on the episode for this show?
Yeah, please do. Amazon.com. Where is Mark? You type that in, and it's a green cover book with it's not a picture of the fire, but it's a replication, if you will, of the marsh fire on the front cover, my name, and Where is Mark. It's very easy to find. I also have a website, which is whereismark.com, where you can also buy the book.
Rich, thank you so much again. And again, if anyone has any information they'd like to provide, please contact either the Cape May County Prosecutor's Office, Middle Township Police Department, or your local police department.
Thank you for your time, Meg.
Thank you, Rich.
That concludes our conversation and this series. Don't forget to subscribe for alerts. You're going to love our upcoming guests.